Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good morning. Welcome to the second day of our webinar for Personal and Professional Development, PPD, for the Clinical Specialist Master Program with Faculty of Medicine, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. I am Zurinah from Department of Anesthesiology and Intensive Care, and I'll be the moderator for today's lectures and forum. This webinar will continue the process of learning and to meet our challenges and desired goal with 2 lectures and a forum. There will be a slight change in the sequence of today's program. The first lecture will be delivered by our esteemed Dean, Prof. Dr. Raja Effendi Raja Ali, followed by the second lecture by Prof. Emerita Dato Dr. Wan Zurinah Wan Ngah. Following the 2 lectures, we will hold our forum with our distinguished speaker, Professor Dato Dr. Zulkifli Mat Zainuddin and Professor Dr. Zurinah Abdul Latif. I would like to begin today's program by introducing our first lecturer, our Dean, Prof. Dr. Raja Effendi Raja Ali. Prof. Dr. Raja Effendi graduated from the National University of Ireland in 2000 before receiving his membership to the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland and Edinburgh in 2004 and obtained his Master's in Medical Science from the University of Ireland in 2005 and was conferred a Doctorate of Medicine for his research into the relationship between inflammatory bowel disease and colorectal cancer at the Department of Clinical Pharmacology and Therapeutics and Regenerative Medicine, National University of Ireland, among other awards, accolades before returning to Malaysia to take up the position of consultant physician and gastroenterologist and Associate Professor in Department of Medicine in Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Now, I will invite Prof. Dr. Raja Effendi to deliver his lecture on effective career and effective career advancement. Professor Dr. Raja.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Selamat pagi. Prof. Zurinah, can you hear well, yeah?
Boleh, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much, hardworking anesthesiologist, our NS, Prof. Zurinah, for the kind introduction. And again, congratulate Prof. Zurinah and the gang to have the webinar for PPD, Personal Professional Development. And I was given a task to discuss about effective career advancement. And I apologize to change the schedule, supposed to be the first one delivered by our emeritus, Dato Wan Zurinah. I have a meeting about 9:30 or so. So I'm going to be very fast, and I gave a lecture a couple of days ago about the research as a continuation, how you're going to see yourself in 4 years' time, in 7 years' time, in 10 years' time. What are your position? What are your thinking? You have to start from now rather than later. Now, if I look back where I was trained, there are similarity in terms of map between Republic of Ireland, which is, you know where is it, and then the Peninsular Malaysia in terms of geographical location. If I look back my place where I was trained at your stage, a lot of clinical science, and I enjoy very much clinical research facilities from the main hospital, about 1,200 bed, go there every day really, and every week listen to the multidisciplinary talk attended by not only clinicians, surgeon, physician, but also scientists, neuroscientists, clinical biochemists, physiologists, and sociologists, mathematicians. All of them we gather together to discuss weekly what are the issues that we can solve in the community. So if I ask yourself and myself and my colleagues, what is the half-life of career in clinical medicine? I can tell you by the end of your career, most of what we have learned, it become nonsense and absolute. Believe or not, with the rapid emerging technique and modalities and pharmacotherapeutic that we use. So if I want to phenotyping all of you, you can be painful, enthusiastic, you can be overly academic, You can be the one who missing in action, cannot on call, who's going to do the on call. You could be childish, you could be sin one, you could be one-track mind. So these are well described in the cartoon, so you can choose which one is yours. We all underwent medical curriculum. We all know that from the year 1 to year 5, we have a lot of very important basic science. If you do have this important, this is the time for you. And the rest of the 2 or 3 years or so, we involve mostly a lot of clinical practice, and some have a special study module. So embedment or having the strong knowledge of the basic science is very important in your clinical practice. So the postgraduate has changed a time when you do undergrad, the stepwise traditional approach. Now the postgraduate, not only time, but also expertise. You all want to be physician, clinician, whatever your interest is. And of course, there are many things that you have to gather by 4 years' time, hopefully a doctor of internal medicine and surgery, pediatric surgery and editing, and hopefully you got specialists and you become a consultant in the future. Now, this is summary of your life cycle. I can tell you, and I'm sure my colleagues, Prof. Zurinah, Prof. Dato Zo, Prof. Dato Wan, everyone who attended agree. So you have done your primary school, your secondary school here. You have attended your medical school. You get the degree, and you have done the houseman or the nationally inside the country or outside. You have done a social senior house officer or medical officer. You can be a chronic medical officer syndrome in clinic kesihatan. You can be chronic medical officer in university. Now your journey is here to get master of medicine or internal medicine. So you're not halfway yet, you are getting there. So congratulations to all of you. So these are the things that you need to chase. And then when you graduate, I hope that not only be internal physician, because hundreds of thousands gender specialists, Malaysia needs subspecialists. So I hope you do a fellowship again, you do subspecialization. To those who overseas, you can come back home. You can do this in overseas, or you're fed up in public practice. You have an option, have a private practice. If you love money, money is everything, but money is not everything. Everything needs money. You can continue your progression, but watch this space. When you do a fellowship, you may want to do something else to fine tune, to uplift, reignite. You may have to do PhD or MD or Master of Science or MBA. You continue to progress. You hold the top posts at the public and private, and you're giving back your expertise to society. So I can tell you in this slide, these are your life cycle, whether you like it or not. Yes, in life, we can plan, but also we have to have a plan B, plan C, plan D as well. But in the COVID era, things become dynamic, become complex. Where are you working in the office, or are you working at home? Is it 9 to 5? Is it 5 to 9? How you fix your time? These are becoming very difficult to control, and very important to have yourself have a control what you're going to do. I'm not going to elaborate further on this. So what are the problems usually what I see facing among postgraduates globally, not only in Malaysia, but also abroad, in terms of developing urgency and importance in making decision? Interpersonal skills, maybe lack of mentoring, motivation, decision-making, networking, public speaking. You know, to be a doctor's clinician scientist is very important, because you're going to communicate with your patient or relative that harass you, for example, or asking so many questions, and you need to know this. I think there's communication and health advocacy in this last thought of the day. So very, very important. So if you fail to plan your next 4 years or so or more, indeed, you plan to fail. So have you made a correct decision to come here to pursue higher clinical training? Of course, I think you have. And again, congratulations to all of you. You can see the novel, how to be a clinician. You relieve the suffering of others. When you leave the house with good intention to helping another human being, provided you are sincere, does not expect any reward from the patient. You don't need to put in your Facebook, social media, I do this, I do that. No, I think God knows what you're doing. Confucius, tell me and I forget, teach me, I will learn, and involve me if I will remember. Can you be a specialist one day? I think you can, definitely, but there are a lot of things that you have to do. And you have to be strong determination, focus in your study goal, strong discipline, healthy attitude in your studies, not only in clinical, but also research and non-other clinical work. And you have to be strong and enjoy your study. You have to have a critical thinking. You have to be like private investigators. A lot of patients coming here, not like typical in clinical kesihatan that you've facing before with a different complex symptomatology, and use adequate knowledge of basic science that you learn. No harm. Sometimes I do love reading regularly or a couple of times per year, ABC of physiology, ABC of pharmacology, ABC of biochemistry, all these 20 essential amino acids, I think is very important in day-to-day practice. So you have to be a critical, systematic thinkers, relevant question, have a sense of curiosity, interested in finding, listen carefully to others, and brave to have the feedback, examine problem closely and have a belief in that. So if I look at the chest X-ray here, you have to be very systematic. You have to comment from A, B, C, D. A is airways, the black. B is the bone is okay, clavicle, anterior, posterior rib. C, the cardiac size and the cardiomegaly, for example. D, right diaphragm is always higher than the left diaphragm because the liver here, the gastric vessel here. E, etc., tumor or malignancy or pneumonia. So you have to think very systematically and also in life. So a person who does not work hard in their younger life will never have a relaxed life when they are older. You can ask Prof. Dato Zurinah after this if you don't trust me. And everything in life has to be earned, and all of us has to pay the tax, whatever our achievement is. And to be a clinical specialist in the future, now you have to pay tax. What are your tax? In the form of study at night, on call, working hard. You have, I think, best to have a study group, do a great research for your future selling point, time management, and many things. These are your tax that you are paying now. So in terms of time management, these are well documented 7 divisions of time, how you have time for family, society, your health, finance, keep 10% of your income, don't straight away, drive expensive car, don't try to save money on academic material, buy books, read that regularly, spirituality, study and self-development, all these things. These are the time that you're going to invest. And guideline to control, I'm not going to be, you are matured doctors, monitor your time. Time is a fixed income, plan everything that you want to do. Once invested, you never get it back. So you reflect how you spend your time and do your some time or dead time or meal time that you have chat and listen to beneficial program and write the abstract or whatever your journal interested is. So there are many self-imposed time waste, all this Facebook and Insta Twitter syndrome. Prolonged use of this, you have to be extremely careful in this, Have a short, medium, long-term plan. This is an example many years ago. I think how many years ago? More than a decade ago. I have my intern. I said, tell me, blah, blah, blah. On the second day, my name is Andrew. I want to finish my medical degree. He was undergraduate, doing kind of SSM with me. Flying colors, hoping to do internship with me, aim to have a postgraduate training, 5 to 7 years. I probably go abroad, either these 3 countries to do such special training, probably read medicine, and then I come back to Ireland to serve to my country, and also I do some of this. So, we discuss what are your career plan, take the box test like today, like you're going to face. And believe it or not, this is Andrew, and nowadays, a couple of weeks ago, he's appointed as a professor, as a nephrologist in my alma mater, and continue to do this. And, we still engage, and I got a lot of mentees all over the world. And it's great pleasure to see how their success, how we discussed more than a decade ago or more than 15 years ago, materialized to this level. And I also have a mentor, for example, last weekend when we have a virtual gut in KLCC. This is one of the mentors in Mayo Clinic College Medicine. I would love to how asking how you're doing and so and so. So the professional relationship can last forever. So how you start this month, I'm not going to teach you. I think you all are brightest brain coming to here, or output learning, study group is very important, especially dealing with clinical issues. And don't try to isolate yourself, try to create a study group among yourself in whatever specialty you do. And I think it's very important to have a study group, important for postgraduate, a way that you consistently, regularly check within each others. Don't try to be a jealousy, don't try to be selfish. teach you how to be tolerant, interactive, acquire interpersonal skill, share cases together. If you are in the medical 6, medical 4, you see a beautiful Bell palsy or stroke or Guillain-Barré syndrome, you can share with your friends and the vice versa. So in other words, so that you maximize optimizing. And a well-organized, and again, study group is not a substitution for your own study and supplement enhance your own study as well. So how to keep your interest in clinical medicine? So you look around the seniors who has passed the exam, how they progress. You can look at, I mean, we have the Director General of Health becoming a very successful now, not only the surgeon, but also very eloquent, talking about the public health medicine, which is, he never been trained in public health medicine, so you can imagine. So avoid of friends having negative attitudes, visualize your future, see at the end of the tunnel what you're going to do, and watch also the new species coming all over the world, which is really still with us in clinician scientists, physicians and engineers, all sort of interventionists, and many other rare subspecialty training program. But as a clinician, to be honest, good history and examination give you 80% of diagnosis. So don't copy and paste the notes from the emergency department staff. Do a thorough history, because 80% you can diagnose all the disease. We only rely 20% of MRI, CT scan. You know, you have to get a good clinical acumen in your days. So how do you present your case? You never get a second chance to make a good impression. Something how things are said are more important than what things are said. You know, I think we have the communication. I'm not going into the detail, but 75% of communication received are incorrectly received. So you have to be extremely kind of communicative, public speaking. You know, you have to present to your colleagues, your team during the work round. You have to be very confident in what you're talking about. And of course, any platform analysis, these are the medium that you have to consider. Those who are day to day that you're going to meet, and you have to have a very good manners with them. And of course, I think they're going to go detail about verbal and non-verbal type of communication. And we all know that when we communicate, more than half about body language, only 36% of voice, and 8% is what you say, words. You know, actions speak louder. How your body language, your seriousness, your eloquence, your tonation, eye contact. This is very important. And I think in my experience, examining the postgraduate student, sometimes your eyes look down. You know, I don't know who you're talking to, but I think you have to have a very good skill in this. So in order for you to advance your career, if you do history, and you have to be very good, display greatest courtesy, excellent first impression, good rapport, and eventually many things that you can do in practice with all your colleagues, things like that. And how to pass clinical exam, I think I'm not going to teach you, but you have to be studies hard and smart. Medicine, surgery, any specialty have a huge subject. So patients are your best teacher. You know, get a rapport to them, you know, and time yourself. Sometimes you can, with the smartphone, you can deliver the history and listen to yourself how many you know, in your presenting the history, and perform a regular basic examination from the day one, and ask yourself, your colleagues to watch and critique. Be happy to listen to the constructive or negative feedback from your colleagues, and work out for long, short cases. Common thing happens commonly. You know, sharing and caring concept, see plenty of cases, and read and examine and read again. Seeing is believing. The moment you see the cases, I still remember when I was a student, what are the first cases you see in the ward. And attend the medical conference, CPC, try to attend that, you know, and try to have a differential diagnosis when somebody presented the CPC, and practice. Teaching during the round, very important. Don't just be my boss, big boss in the past used to say, don't like be a tourist, like in the ward, go to the ward. Analyze carefully each patient. What are the elements that you want to do? If you want to ask your HO to repeat full blood count, what's the reason? To repeat renal profile, what's the reason? You know, this cost the money, save the money, and what the reason for that, you know. So you have to think about all these things. And you want to watch many procedures, go to any places you want, in the radiology, in the ICU, anticipate proactively. Don't just carry the notes and listen and play the phone and notes going on. Why this patient, let's say, have hyponatremia? You know, is it medication induced? Is it hydration problems? Is it, you know, SIADH? Or is it what? You know, think about that. And then you all have a smartphone. Everything you forgot, just go back straight to whatever that you have. So the types of you, I can predict whether you are the one who would like wait to happen, you're wondering what happened to you, or you want something happen to you. So you ask yourself. And these are the Venn diagram for all of us, even those who are specialty consultant. You still got exam, you get study, you get KPI in terms of exam, you get family, friends, teacher. Of course, you're holidaying, enjoying, but now you cannot travel. How your work for the communities, your research project. I suggest you start early, have Gantt chart, good supervisors. After the first part of your exam, think about research project, whether you have a business online, whether you have a share, something. This is part and parcel in our life. So again, tips and tricks, dedication, hardworking, good strategies, and in other words, there's so many things that you have to do. Keep reading your book, engage heavily in research, challenge your supervisors. Challenge your supervisors. Don't just replicate what other people has done in the studies. Challenge them, suggest to them what you're going to do, because as I said to you early on, it may be your selling point for your career in the future. You may be the one who develop a good practice guideline for measuring something in the sick patient in ICU, for example. So I think something that you can think about. And how do you do that? You have to read and read. Don't stop reading. Once you're committed to be a doctor specialist, reading is becoming your normal physiological process. Choose at least once a week, one paper, at least what your interest is, to develop up to date in the issues. So if I look back if I stop from the life cycle here, if you're going to do some extra high-end studies or research, in other words, I get from Dato Asma, the President of Academic Science of Malaysia. These are the way that we're going to move forward for the next many years. Digital health, precision medicine, and clinical trial. So in this area, probably you may need to ask or challenge your supervisor. I think you are familiar, National Health Mobility Survey. We got a lot of issue in obesity, how you can be part of the game changer or part to change or to solve the problems for our countries. So, you can do a PhD after that. What's the problems? I mean, yes, it takes another 3 years. So you can get something that no one else get it. When you do that, as a scientist, do the basic science, because a lot of future clinical academic workforce, this as a preparation for biomedical scientific discovery to ensure high quality research and medical research be undertaken. And the gap between invention and the real world is still there. You do something in the lab, you do something epidemiology. When I'm talking about research, not exclusively for the lab base, it could be epidemiology, something that you want to discover. You can look at the dengue. Dengue is still killing people. This is a public health issues, something that you can do. So what kind of invention you want to do? So these are the value of death in terms of you do the research between preclinical and you translate into clinical, and what are the efficacy, for example, pharmacological, to benefit all these patients. You can argue now a vaccine COVID-19, for example, are they going to give efficacy to 15 million of Malaysians, for example, So the need for our country, this species is really, we need that, So I do hope, I'm not hoping all of you, I'd be very happy 5% of you to think about this in the future, because we see a lot of clinical problems that need a lot of science to resolve this. And I can tell you, it's a very rewarding. It's a pain in the beginning, but it's rewarding because the world need this. And you can see in the West, and in Japan, in Far East, many, but in our part of the region, Southeast Asia, still lacking the species called clinician scientists. So the benefits are many. We can answer the research questions, gain access to many settings. We are being trusted by patient, participant, and we got a lot of motivation to disseminate all these findings for the commitment of further research. And I mean, what it takes to be one, of course, your career expectation, cost, the program land, the level of competition is very high, and infrastructure to support your research. And don't forget, our hospitals, a teaching hospital, is a giant laboratory. We got patient data, we got staff, we got database. This is a free of charge for you to dig down, and this can turn to PhD indeed if you play this game right. Fresh samples, if you are looking on the fresh sample in the OT samples, whatever sample that you're dealing, and even primary health care also, you can do some visit or house and see the knowledge, attitude, practice, and what are the barriers, among this patient. So I think beyond this, 2020, you will be a super specialist in 10 years' time. You have to think hard. You have to subtype yourself. You have to give some prognosis to yourself. You have to have a strategic plan in order to advance your career effectively, efficiently in the future. If not, then you become one of the generalists, specialists, which is 1,000 in the market. Your stock exchange to go to private practice also not high. So you end up being one of the ordinary. Be extraordinary. At this moment of time, everybody wants to be good in your life, in your career, and after that become great. However, great is no longer good enough. And this is the era that we are facing. And these are 4 types of intelligence to add on further how you want to be effective in your career. We all know you are very high IQ, which is measure your comprehension to solve the problems, retain information, but also emotional question, how to measure your ability to maintain coolness, peace, responsible, humble. People shouting at you when you're exchanging the patient, there's no point to shout back. In fact, you can smile and relax. If you shout back, you are no different with him or her. Social cohesion, measure your ability how to build a network of friends and maintain long over period of time. And also another one, adversity question, how you measure your ability if you get a rough patch of life and how you come out that without losing your mind. We all have up and down in life. There's no doubt from we are small until now, but how you measure, how you go through with that, something that you need to think about. So your EQ really represent your character, your SQ represent your charisma. So EQ and SQ make one cope and manage better, and AQ determine who will give up in the face of this journey. So if your adversity question is low, you will decide to quit after a year or 2 during this journey of clinical training. So you really have to have this kind of 4 type of intelligence together. And there are many books, you can read this book, IQ. There are many things in the media or in the books, reading material. And people who have high emotional and social question tend to do better in life. So those with high IQ but low this can be their servant. So a person of high IQ can end up being employed by a person of high EQ and SQ, even though the person who get high EQ and SQ had an average IQ, something that for us to ponder. Keep reading, have a roadmap for your life. What are the habits you have? What are the ciri untuk succeeding as hospital doctors? Is everything there? And I hope this declaration, I would like you to read yourself today, that I will promise to myself to study very hard, to be a successful postgraduate student and specialist in the future. I hope you can remember this, and I hope to see you in 4 years' time. You all graduate on time. So dear all, ladies and gentlemen, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, working together with all of us here will be a success. So now we embark on cleverness-based medicine. The good doctor treat the disease, the great doctor treat the patient who has the disease, the excellent doctor treats beyond horizon. So in summary, Prof. Zurinah, what I can say in order to advance, work hard and smart, choose your career early, engage in research early, perform a cutting-edge research and work with others, scientists, engineers, so and so. Plan your life, have a backup plan. Don't forget interpersonal skill and all this EQ, IQ, SQ I mentioned to you. And more importantly, enjoy the journey. And the success, what it looks like this is not straightforward. Then above all, these are the very important slide, career progression, effective in life. We want to achieve so much. After many years, got MBBS or MD for 5 years or so, you become houseman. Now you become the registrar, medical officer. You're going to get all this qualification. You're going to specialize, that you're going to be consultant. But there's also another mirror that you have to remember before we were born, and we are living in the world. We are living another aspect in the world. We are going to enter a new world, and hopefully all of us go to Jannah if you follow hereafter, the world will follow you. But if you follow the world, the after will leave you. So very important insight for all of us. With that, I thank you so much for your attention. I hope 9:30 now, Prof. Zurinah, I'm on time. And thank you so much for listening early in the morning. Thank you. Back to you, Prof. Zurinah.
Thank you, Prof. Raja Effendi, for a very inspirational lecture on the effective career advancement. And Amin, inshallah, we all go to Jannah, inshallah.
So Prof. Zurinah, I will leave you here and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, I think we will move on to our second lecture of today that will be delivered by Prof. Emerita Dato Dr. Wan Zurinah Ngah, and Prof. Dr. Wan Zurinah Ngah received her bachelor degree in biochemistry in 1977 from University of Liverpool, and her PhD in biochemistry in 1992 from Victoria University. Prof. Emerita Dato Dr. Wan Zurinah has held various administrative posts in our Faculty of Medicine, including Deputy Dean of Academic Affairs and Head of Department, as well as serving as Deputy Director of Research at UKM Molecular Biology Institute between 2008 and 2016. She has also served as UKM Senate member, and she was the first woman in UKM who represent the Senate as a member of the University Board of Directors. Now, I would like to invite Prof. Emerita Dato Dr. Wan Zurinah to deliver her lecture on risk assessment.
Thank you, Prof. Maya Dr. Zurinah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everybody. I can see there are about 290, sorry, I should go back. 297 of you. First, I would like to welcome you. For those who are already were in UKM before, so welcome back to UKM. And for those who are just joining UKM for the first time, welcome. And also heartiest congratulations for joining the postgraduate program, and thank you for choosing UKM. I've been given the topic on risk assessment, and I thought that to come after the talk on effective career advancement, it could be something that you could put into practice, checking the risk assessment of a postgraduate study. So start with a case study. A staff of a hospital fell on a slippery floor, left after cleaning, and broke her leg. This actually happened in our hospital in HUKM, and she sued the hospital and was settled out of court. So the issues that was raised was actually poor safety culture. You know, it could be that. Poor communication and teamwork if you are looking at it from a risk assessment point of view. Improper training, unreliable equipment, or unsuitable environment, such as the floor itself is of the slippery type. Yeah. So, and you all know about the COVID-19 situation now. So there are many reports which can be made as case studies in terms of managing and looking at the healthcare workers in the context of COVID-19. And if you look at, there are also risk assessments of even having mass gatherings, and this has been is available on the WHO website. So from starting with definitions, yes, risk assessment, I think this will remind you possibly of your posting with a community during community health on risk assessment. It's a systematic process to comprehend the nature of the risk and express and evaluate risk with the available knowledge. And it comes under, risk assessment comes under the bigger umbrella of risk management, which are activities to handle risk prevention, mitigation, adaptation, or sharing. And it often includes trade-offs. Yeah? So why is risk assessment important to patient safety? When we talk, is usually risk assessment is routine in most industries, and this includes healthcare industry. The early approach to risk assessment was actually to prevent costly legal action by patients against health professionals or the hospitals. But usually the presence of what's happening? Okay. Presence of patient, the false the okay. I'm not sure because my sort of screen sort of got enlarged. Cik Buari, is that you controlling my screen?
Tak, saya tak control Dr. punya, Dato' punya
Yeah,
screen.
I tak tahu kenapa dia jadi besar. I
Try
didn't do anything.
unshare, lepas tu reshare balik.
Okay, dia jadi besar. Jadi besar ke? Can you see it big?
Jadi besar dekat sini.
I just stop share ya sekejap.
Try unshare and then share balik.
Okay, hang on. It sort of hang lah. So I just go to the next slide and see and see whether that's better. Okay. So dia macam okay. I'm not touching anything, but it sort of became okay. So why? Sorry about the technical problem. Yeah. So risk assessment is important because it forms an integral part of occupational health and safety, and create awareness of hazards and resulting risks, and identify who may be at risk. Determine whether a control program is required, and determine if existing control measures are adequate. Prevent injuries, that is, prioritize hazards and control measures, and make legal requirements where applicable. So it is a costly lesson for businesses as well as hospitals or institutions if the necessary controls are not in place, and because this will lead to financial loss and fines, but also in respect of production time, damage to equipment, and negative publicity. Particularly in the healthcare industry, it will be to humans if harm and injury and death occurred. So again, risk is possibility of unfortunate occurrence and potential for realization of unwanted and negative consequences of an event. And if such an event occurs, that is called an adverse event. Yeah? And there's exposure to proposition and the consequences of activity and associated uncertainties. Yeah? So it's also about severity of consequences with respect to the human's value. It could also, so the definition for risk is actually quite broad, and it covers a whole lot of things that are associated in the workplace and to prevent usually what they call adverse effects. So it could also be a deviation from a reference value. So why do risk assessment? I was looking for YouTube probably to share with you, and I found this was actually Will Gadd. He is an extreme sports person who actually tried to climb the Niagara Falls during winter. So he had to do a proper risk assessment to ensure that his actual job will be safe. So again, it could be something that you might want to try when you do a proper risk assessment of your postgraduate studies. There's even lawyers who actually specialize in litigation of hazards or accidents occurring as a result of a single unmarked step. Yeah? So a single unmarked step can also be a risk. Yeah? So when you are walking around in the hospitals or in the clinics, then maybe you should be on the lookout for single unmarked steps, which can result in falls. Yeah. So risk assessment in healthcare, and this is the practical side. Yeah. So remember, a risk assessment seeks to answer 4 simple related questions, and not so much to give you, a model on how to do it, but to illustrate certain points. Yeah. So what can go wrong? How bad is it? How often will it occur? And is there something that requires action? Yeah. So it is a systematic process. You need to identify hazards that have the potential for harm, and this results in risk. You need to analyze and evaluate the risk associated with that hazard. And this is called risk assessment and risk evaluation. And determine ways to eliminate hazard or risk when the hazard cannot be eliminated. And this is called risk control. So in practice, what this is actually you can translate into 5 steps. Identify the hazards, what can go wrong, decide who might be harmed, the people who are involved and can be harmed, who is exposed to the hazard, evaluate the risk, how bad, how often it can occur, and decide on the precautions. Is there a need for further action? Record your findings, propose action, identify who will lead on what action, and to record, proper recording, and review the assessment and update if necessary. So in detail, in order to understand what is likely to go wrong, you have to understand also how and why it did go wrong. So consider the activities within the context. This is trying to do a risk assessment, the practical guide of doing risk assessment. You have to look at the context of physical, emotional environment, and the culture. So it is quite a number of factors that you have to take into consideration when doing a risk assessment, the organization and the staff who actually perform the activity. And you have to take into account things that have gone wrong in the past and near-miss incidents. These are called near-misses. The things that have gone wrong in the past, the incidents, as well as the near-misses, we're supposed to learn from this. And we have to see and analyze what could have been done to prevent these incidents and also near misses. So how to go about doing this is actually you need to be alert and actually walk around the workplace and clinical area and talk to patients and staff, describe activity to be assessed, and and usually the people involved in risk assessment are usually a multidisciplinary team. So step 2, who might be harmed? So we have to accept it. People will make mistakes, and it's necessary to anticipate the degree of human error, try to prevent error from resulting in harm. A number of patients that might be affected over a stated period of time. So it is also time-based. You have to determine in 3 years, how many people had falls on this particular type of floor, for instance. So when quoting the number, you have to state the length of the assessment. So remember, the most vulnerable patients are most likely to suffer, and the complexity of certain tasks when you're doing risk assessment. So step 3, evaluate the risk. How often, how bad, how often. Is there a need for additional action? So the law actually requires everybody providing a service to do everything reasonably practical to protect patients from harm. So you actually have to use, there is a risk matrix that people usually see. If you look at risk assessment, there's always a risk matrix, and decide on the precautions or the controls that will most effectively reduce, and then and the likelihood of the steps that have to be taken, and reevaluate and record the findings. So apologize for this. I'm not quite sure what is happening to why it is enlarging by itself. Okay. So I just go back. Okay. So next one, step 5. So you are planning routinely at least, or when there has been right. So this is the risk matrix. Sorry, you can about that. So you have to consequence. The consequence could be negligible of an adverse event, could be minor, could be moderate, major, or catastrophic. And these are the how it is colored, in terms of the risk event. Okay. And this is the frequency, how often, whether it is rare, unlikely, possible, or likely, or very often. Okay. So there are differences between a hazard and a risk. We have to understand that the hazards are different from risks. Hazards are situations with potential to cause harm. Risks can be defined as probability that a specific adverse reaction will occur. And risk also is combination of likelihood and consequence that hazard will be realized. A clinical or healthcare risk is a chance of an outcome resulting from a clinical investigation, treatment, or patient care. So usually when we talk about risk, there are things that are pertinent to risk, and usually students need to have personal accountability. I'm not quite sure why this is happening. how to gather information about risk, understand fitness to practice, personal accountability for managing, and know how to report risk hazards and know when and how to ask for help from the supervisor, relevant or the relevant health professional. So these are some of the things in terms of related to risk assessment that students usually have to be aware and have to take note when doing risk assessment. And in terms of performance requirements, usually in risk assessment, there is a need to keep accurate and complete medical records. Yeah? To participate in meetings, the hospital will have a risk assessment system. And it is, if it is good, if, for the understanding of risk and to improve your performance and properly quality, to participate in meetings that discuss risk management and patient safety. Because respond appropriately to patients and families after an adverse event. So there is communication there, and respond appropriately to complaints. Yeah. So finally, actually there is now. You're not quite sure, as what Prof. Raja mentioned just now. When you plan your future, it is possible that in about 10 years' time, 20 years' time, you'll be running a hospital. So there is a report by Moody investors that they say that the hospital or the system, healthcare system, is actually very closely related. The risk management plan determines the hospital's relationship between the performance and the profit margin. So they suggest risk management, what is called an enterprise risk management. So that healthcare risk management is not only limited to being reactive, but also is supposed to be proactive and view risk through the much broader view of the entire healthcare ecosystem. So now risk management is beyond just risk management and risk assessment and risk management, but it also involves the whole healthcare ecosystem. So the the function of risk assessment, which is to uncover, mitigate, and prevent risk in healthcare institutions, is now turned into something which is of a bigger system to manage the risk in the hospital. So this is what they call the healthcare enterprise risk management, and so ERM. And if you look at it, there are actually 8 domains, and it covers from operational through to clinical and patient safety, to human capital, to financial, to legal, to technology even. So enterprise risk management also covers what we think is like cyber security, for instance, because there is digitization in the health industry, and that in itself could pose as a risk. Yeah, and that is hazard and could pose as a risk because there could be hacking of patient records and so on. So the 8 domains in the enterprise risk management, and in the components of performing RM here is a risk management, not Ringgit Malaysia, to identify risks, to quantify and prioritize risks, to investigate and report sentinel events. Sentinel events are events that are the worst that could have actually happened. Yeah, those are sentinel events. Perform compliance reporting, capture and learn from near misses and good catches. Remember, I mentioned about near misses incidents just now. Think beyond the obvious to uncover latent failures and deploy proven analysis for incident, and invest in robust risk management infrastructure system, because there are now systems to actually predict what are the risks of a particular program that you are starting, and find the right balance in terms of financing, transfer, and go on to creating a healthcare risk management plan. So it covers through education and training, for instance. It even encompasses new employee orientation, service training, even ongoing service training, annual reviews, competency validation, patient, family, grievances, purpose, goals, and metrics, define benefits and goals. Yeah, this is a healthcare risk management plan that has been put forward. Yeah, there is the fourth is communication plan, contingency plans, reporting protocols, and response and mitigation. So you can see that the healthcare risk management plan is fairly comprehensive and covers all the activities of the hospital or a healthcare system. Yeah. So I like to finish with this in terms of a survival and moral imperative. So you can see that there are risk and uncertainty. It is inevitable because in healthcare organizations involving humans, and there is also a provision of intricate and multifaceted care. So there will be entities of adverse circumstances. So based on the 1997 of the IOM, Institute of Medicine report, yeah, there was medical errors. So they said there should be, it is imperative to take every measure necessary to save lives. And now that they say the medical culture should taught the ABCs, yeah? Accuse, blame, and criticize should be removed. And there should be a safety culture of emphasizing blameless reporting. There should be reporting, successful knowledge, yeah, successful in terms of systems, knowledge, respect, confidentiality, and trust. Yeah. So as you can see, that is the final thing that I would like to end with. And in summary, hazards risk assessment are different, yeah, risk assessment and risk management. There are systematic processes which identify what can go wrong and how bad it is and what needs to be, if there's a need for action. Know the risk assessment and management. Appreciate the risk management is about safety, and as it is about improving quality and performance. And this is important. This is the thing that I wanted to drive home about risk assessment. So it's not just preventing accidents from happening, it's also about improving quality and performance. Yeah. And there is such a thing now that is called enterprise risk management and the risk management plan, which is comprehensive and cover different aspects of the running of the activities in the hospital or healthcare system. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. And my references, yeah, these are some of my references from WHO and also from and the NIH guide for the national patient safety. And also, I like to wish you all the best in your postgraduate studies, and hope that you will Allah will make ease all your efforts, and that you will be successful. And that will be my dua for you all. I like to apologize, yeah, for the. I'm not quite sure what is happening. The computer is doing it by itself. I'm not touching anything, but it's decided to enlarge and become small by itself. So I think there is, I'm not quite sure what is happening there. And this is the first time that's happening. So see, I apologize. I'm not touching anything, but it's just doing that. I'm not quite sure whether there's fluctuations in the power, although that has been taken off. So Prof. Dr. Zurinah, again, apologize for my slides. I'm not quite sure what's happening. And I think I'm on time. I'm now 9:54. Thank you, Prof. Zurinah.
Thank you very much, Professor Emerita Dato Dr. Wan Zurinah, for your lecture on risk assessment. The technical problem always happen. I think in every webinar there will always some glitch about that. We are still new on this norm, so I think everybody is like in a learning curve to suit our new norm. So I think it's occur all the time in all the webinar, I think, that I've been attended. Okay, I would like to remind the participant, if you have any question, please type at the Q&A box that at the bottom of the Zoom. And actually we have one question asking about whether they, Dr. Daniel Faiz, that whether they can have slides for the risk management. I think at the end of this PPD webinar for the PPD, Professor Dr. Zurinah will collect all the slides, and I think she would make it available to all the participants of the webinar. Yeah. I hope that's answer your question, Dr. Daniel. Yeah. Is there any other question from the participants? You can type. Okay, while waiting, I have one question for Dato. In your vast experience, Dato, you have been very, very experienced in this field. How did you manage the stress in order to take the risk that you were under to ensure the effective result? To manage stress in order to take the risk, because I think it's not easy to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Stress. Yeah. Managing stress. I think there will be a talk after this, a forum, I think, on mental health. But personally, how I have managed is always, I think, it's making doa. It's always having even from a very young age. I think because I was in boarding school, and then after that, as you can see, I was overseas, so very much on my own. So the thing I think that really sort of helped me was actually always making doa to Allah. Always. I when it comes to religion, I'm very I do not know. I'm still learning, and I do not know much about it in terms of religion. You know, because I went to an English speaking school, and Ugama wasn't one of the subjects. You know, you have to come in the afternoon to do Ugama. But it's something that that has sort of helped me together always in the belief that Allah, you know, will always be there. And of course, the second thing will be managing stress will be my family. No matter how tired you are, how stressful you are, after when coming back to your family, you know, and then seeing those times when you are working, you're a young mother. You know, I know you're postgraduate students, you'll probably be young mothers and you've got babies and, you know, trying to get your attention. So it's just seeing the smile on your baby's face, you know, is enough to distress you, I think. And of course, your husband, you know, has to be very supportive as well. So you have to very early on, postgraduate students, you have to very early on draw in the support of your husband and your family. Because there will be times that you have to rely on them. Your husband has to be very supportive, and your family as well, because there will be times you might not be able to be present during family gatherings. And I know in Malaysia there's so many gatherings, you know, cukur jambul lah, you know, so many kenduris that you have attended. Although now with the COVID-19, that is more sort of control. But those gatherings, you have to, you know, you have to probably explain nicely to the family that you are now for the next 4 years going to be very busy. I know Prof. Zurinah is smiling away because of that. Yeah, but now with COVID-19, that is not a problem anymore. But getting the support of husband and family is, I think, crucial and critical for postgraduate studies. And being in Malaysia, if your family are here, then that's a real advantage, because when I did my postgraduate, it was in overseas, so it was tough. It was really tough, yeah. But you learn. So like what Prof. Raja said, there is the tax that comes with it. So you have to work hard, is it, and then hopefully things will be easier later on.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. I'm pretty sure all the speakers today and also all the lecturers who's been in this faculty has their own hurdles to overcome during their career. So if to all the participants, if you want to ask question to Prof. Dr. Raja Effendi, also I think can, and maybe we can let him know that there is some question for him too. Also, the next question would be, Dato, is from Dr. Zaim Hazin. He was asking about when an incident reporting is submitted, what is the usual process?
Yeah, okay. Actually, the process of risk assessment, there will be a system in the hospital where you will be working, or the clinic where you will be posted. So the process, I think, will be listed there, and you have to follow, because it differs from hospitals and places of work, from places to place. Yeah? So you just have to follow the process that is instituted in the hospital or the healthcare system, and then and follow the process. But whether the process is going to come up with a response, you can take it upon yourself to probably find out later whether there is a mitigation response. If it involves a patient complaint, then you can follow up later. Why am I sort of okay?
If I may add, Dato', about the incident reporting, tomorrow there will be another session in which the training against medical error team will come on board.
Right.
And
Yeah.
one of the things that's being addressed also is about incident reporting.
Okay.
So Dr. Zaim and everybody else here, please continue, although I know it's compulsory, although I said the word please, do tune in tomorrow, yeah? I think we can elaborate that even further lah, insyaAllah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dato and Prof. Zurinah, for the response. I think that's all the question that I can take at the moment, because we need to move on to the next session of our webinar today. I would like.
Thank you, Prof. Zurinah and Prof. Azarina and Prof. Dato' Zul. Yeah, I take leave first. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dato,
thank you.
for all the
Assalamualaikum.
support.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, we move on to our forum of the day, which is on communication and health advocacy. So our panelists for these forums are Professor Dato' Dr. Zulkifli Mat Zainuddin and Prof. Dr. Zurinah Abdul Latif. They are actually a very familiar face to all of us here in Faculty of Medicine. Yeah. So Prof. Dato' Dr. Zulkifli Mat Zainuddin is a consultant neurologist and head of urology unit in Department of Surgery, Hospital Chancellor Tuanku Mukhlis, UKM. He's also currently Assistant Dean of Student and Alumni, Faculty of Medicine, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. He graduated from Faculty of Medicine, UKM in 1992 and pursued his postgraduate study in Masters of Surgery in UKM and obtained his Master in 2002. He was certified as a urologist by Board of Urologists in 2002. And he did his fellowship in Royal Adelaide Hospital in 2004 to 2005. And also he is also a fellow in Royal College of Surgeons, Urology, Glasgow in 2015. And currently he is also served as a board member of Malaysian Urologists Association. Our next panelist will be Professor Dr. Zurinah Abdul Latif. Prof. Dr. Zurinah, I think you have known her. She has been here since, I think, from day one, yeah, when you entered the master's program. So Prof. Dr. Zurinah graduated from University of Malaya in 1992 and went to obtain her master's of medicine in pediatrics in Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia in 1998 before pursuing her postgraduate subspecialty in medical genetics and at University of Glasgow and Southampton. Prof. Dr. Zurinah was previously head of pediatric here at Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia Medical Centre and principal fellow at UMBI. She's currently Deputy Dean of Postgraduate Study at Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia Faculty of Medicine and also Senior Consultant Pediatrician and Clinical Geneticist at UKM Medical Centre. So with that, I think I would like to start our forum with the words that I think is more familiar to me and maybe all of you, which is communication. Yeah, the other words would be something that we have to learn later during our forum today, which is advocacy. So with that, I would like to invite Prof. Zurinah to enlighten us about it. Prof. Zurinah.
Thank you so much, Prof. Azhar, for the introduction. Yeah, I think they may have a little bit of overdose of me already. Yeah? So this is my third day making an appearance. I think I will also make an appearance tomorrow. But I think today, for this particular session, we want to try and make it interactive and a little bit light, and we're trying to engage our experience. However, having said that, lecturers being lecturers, we still like to share slides, okay? So allow me to share my slides, and there will be 2 videos, inshallah, okay? Can you see my slides on slideshow?
Yes, yes, can.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, thank you. So this morning we have a forum which is talking about 2 areas, but they are interrelated, I believe. And what my section is about effective communication. And when we talk about effective communication, what does it mean actually? So it is defined as verbal speech or other methods of relaying information in order to get a point across. So when we talk about other methods, I think we always, if you're talking about a procedure, for example, right, it's always good to add in, some visual aids, okay, because then you will be reinforcing the points that you make. And the most important thing is to make sure that it gets through to whoever is in front of you. Yeah, it could be the adult patient, okay, or it could be the mother of a patient, and so on. And I think I like to stress here that the communication should be bi-directional. Okay, I think a lot of us, when we run clinics especially, we probably have to time ourselves, right? It's probably less than 30 seconds after we say hello, how are you, and all that, and then we jump in already, right? Probably in a setup of a busy clinic, you do have to do that a little bit quicker. But depending on the context of what you need to communicate, right? Certainly if you are delivering a bad news, a new diagnosis, one that is maybe like cancer, okay, or a terminally ill patient, then you really have to play the role of listening to, right? So it is bi-directional, it's not uni, okay? And what's important is the healthcare personnel involved, and in this case it's you yourself, must adequately comprehend and interpret the information. So you have to have a certain level of confidence and knowledge so that you can deliver it effectively. Okay, so I just like to share this slide, this video, sorry. This is a video from the Royal College of Surgeons, okay? And this is, I think yesterday, Dato Hassan emphasized a lot about informed consent. So let's just have a look at this video, okay?
Informed consent in a patient's shoes. Uninformed consent goes something like
Can you
this.
see the video?
Okay then, Mr. Miller, we've had your blood test back, your white cells and CRP are up, so we do think it's appendicitis. What we can do for you today is take you for a keyhole operation to take your appendix out and get you better again, okay? It's a fairly low risk operation, just a few cuts in the tummy. There's some risks of pain, of bleeding and infection, and there's a risk that we might need to make that a bigger operation, okay, and cut open your tummy. I've signed here. You can just sign here for your operation today. Okay, and we'll get you up to theatres and get that done today. We'll see you in theatres.
Who is she? What's CRP? What is an appendix? What is keyhole surgery? What have I let myself in for?
Valid patient consent requires information and understanding. Not all patients feel empowered enough to ask doctors questions or to let us know when they don't understand.
Hello again, Mr. Miller. I'm Ellen Jerome. I'm one of the surgeons working for Mr. Philpott, the consultant on call today.
Hello, Doctor.
Hello. We've had the results from your blood test back. Some of the markers of infection are raised, which supports the diagnosis of appendicitis. And what we'd probably recommend for that is a laparoscopic appendicectomy. Do you know anything about the appendix or appendicitis?
Not a lot.
Okay, I'll tell you a bit about it now. Do you mind if I just sit here?
Please do,
Thank
yeah.
you. All right. So imagine this is your body. Okay, there are your legs and your belly button's there.
Just a few minutes of explaining to the patient what's happening can make all the difference.
Okay then, Mr. Miller, so just to summarise, we've talked about appendicitis and why we recommend removing the appendix to treat it. We've talked about what your recovery is likely to be and a bit about how we do the operation. Do you have any other questions at the moment?
No, Doctor, I feel very well informed. Thank you very much.
I've written out a consent form here, so if you just happen to sign on the line. And we'll see you a bit later for the operation.
Thank you.
These simple steps can improve our patient's understanding. Introduce yourself. Assess prior knowledge and give information accordingly. Use visual aids. Avoid medical jargon. Summarise. Offer the opportunity to ask questions. And with patient understanding comes patient empowerment and trust.
I hope you were able to listen to the video clearly. Yes? Yes, okay. Right.
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see from the video, there were two scenes. I think the first one shows the not to do, and the second one shows how it should be done, right? So I think we do encourage you to actually practice on your own. Actually, I know when we communicate, is learning on the job. Okay, but I think you do have to listen in, and whenever your specialist do some counseling, all right, I do advise you to be there also, okay, so that you can hopefully pick up some important points. Okay, so why is it, or rather how important is communication, right? Communication is so important that it is actually addressed in the WHO patient safety module, right? And why is it important? Because when you communicate well, then you are an effective team player, right? Because when you are part of a team, you're going to have to communicate information, right? You have to give information to the patients, or if it's an emergency situation, if you're resuscitating, right? You have to give information to the other healthcare providers. So when you communicate well, then only you become an effective team player. Okay, and the other thing is, I think maybe Dato Wan has also highlighted about effective communication is important because it actually helps you manage clinical risk. Okay, so when you talk about managing clinical risk, and I think Dato Hassan also mentioned yesterday, right? When there is a complaint, for example, one of the first things that must be done is mediation, right? And for somebody to mediate, okay, you need to be able to communicate effectively. Yeah. So when you do that, then you are making improvements. You are ensuring that the patient is satisfied with what you have explained. Okay, and of course, without having to emphasize this last point, communication is important because that's how you engage your patients and the caregivers, right? So I'm a pediatrician, so I will actually engage the parents. Okay, I do also engage the children, to be honest, right? If the children are of a certain age, right? If they are toddler or if they're adolescent, certainly, I wouldn't just ignore them because, you know, every now and then they will look at you suspiciously and they will be gauging you actually, right? So also try and engage them probably, but not to the point of where you have to impart knowledge lah, yeah, or diagnosis. So you have to engage your patients and the caregivers, right? If it's a geriatric patient, you probably have to engage the children. of the elderly. Okay, so when you engage and when you communicate effectively, you are creating awareness and you are providing education, because at the end of the day, when they are discharged, it is them who will continue the care of what you have prescribed. So you have to empower them, right, so that they can continue to play an active role. Okay. Oh, okay, wait. Right. So there are various scenarios in which you are expected to communicate, right? So I've mentioned you probably have to communicate with the patients and family members, or the right column, you may have to communicate with the health personnel, because remember, you don't work alone, right? You always work in a team. So when you're talking to patients and family members, these are some of the scenarios, right? And I think for you to become a more effective communicator, you have to familiarize what you have to impart in each of the scenario, because it's not the same, right? You could be counseling for a diagnosis. Maybe it's the first time that a child is being diagnosed to have leukemia, right? So you have to know what is it that you have to say. Or maybe it's at the clinic where you have to then put in a new medication, right? And you have to sit down and describe what is that medication, when do you take the medication, possible side effects, right? And maybe you have to talk about prognosis, okay? So how you deliver it depends on the scenario, okay? You may also be asked to explain procedures. For example, doing a lumbar puncture, okay? Or doing a bone marrow aspiration, okay? And of course, you've already witnessed that first video where you are taking consent. Okay, so when you take consent, make sure you are well versed with the procedure or the surgery that is being done, right? So if you're not so well versed, I don't think you should be the one who's taking the consent, right? If you are so junior, right, and if you are in your early practice and you're talking about a more complex surgery, for example, then it should be the specialist or consultant who's doing that, okay? Because you know you have to satisfy the patient's needs. I'm sure there are lots of questions on that patient's minds. Okay, so that's the group about talking about the family and the patients. Okay, what about the health personnel? So when we talk about health personnel, again, right, you could be in a Passover round, so you could be talking about patient management. The treatment, right? For example, well, this patient needs an albumin infusion at about 8 o'clock, but please ensure the Lasix is given at so and so time, right? So you have to give that instruction clearly, right? And you have to make sure that you give it to the right person. And of course, when you're working in a team, right, there is variability in seniority. So the type of information that you give, right, maybe you are a medical officer now, right, you are embarking on your specialty training, you're going to pass over and ask your houseman, right, to trace something. So you have to tell them explicitly how to do it. Maybe they're not familiar with the online system, right? So you have to remember the background of the person to whom you are communicating. Okay, and remember, you work in a team. So everybody is a team member and everybody is important, all right? Please, let's not do this thing where we poo-poo somebody, right, in the team. Everybody matters, okay? And sometimes the things that they do may overlap, right? For example, maybe, you know, you want to do a blood gas, right, at NICU, okay? I'm sorry, all my experiences are, of course, in pediatrics, okay? So, you know, probably the nurse has to do some suction. So the timing is important. So this is what I mean by shared responsibility. You have to know what is being done at what time and what needs to be done next, okay? Now, let's just look at this scenario here, right? This is all about being an effective team player. This is a scenario in where the treating team did not communicate with each other, okay? So here, Simon, an 18-year-old man, was brought by ambulance to the hospital. He had been involved in a fight and unfortunately he suffered serious head injury when his head hit the pavement. The ambulance officers were very busy and did not have time to brief the health professionals in the ED. Simon wasn't able to say his name or speak clear words when he was first examined by a triage nurse, then a doctor. The doctor in attendance, an intern, who who was only weeks out of medical school. Okay, so this is somebody very junior. This intern didn't have a supervisor on that night. All right, this sounds pretty real, right? Yeah. And he and the nursing staff failed to recognize the seriousness of Simon's head injury. Simon had been drinking, and the intern, right, decided that he was just simply drunk. So a diagnosis supported by Simon's rowdy and aggressive behavior. Okay, however, such behavior can also indicate serious head injury. So this is tomorrow, it will be touched upon by the trained team. So don't be so fixated, okay? Right? You must look at the whole picture. Simon was then prescribed medication for nausea and placed under observation. On a number of occasions, the nurses and interns separately tested his verbal and motor responses. As time passed, the nurses documented his deteriorating condition in the clinical notes, but did not communicate this directly to the intern. Unfortunately, the intern relied on verbal communications, right? Remember, he's junior, right? And didn't take sufficient notice of the notes, okay? Simon unfortunately died 4.5 hours after entering the hospital. So this was taken by the Patient Safety Education Framework. This is a real case scenario. So it is very unfortunate, okay, that this has to happen. So you can see, you need to communicate and ensure, this is the background of a junior staff, right? No matter how busy you are, right, you still will have to communicate, all right? Okay, so these are just some, I'll just go very quickly to this slide, because why do you need to communicate and what are the important factors that can affect communication? Because now the patients who present to us, right, the care is so much more sophisticated. So and if you are talking about a tertiary center like HCTM here, the patients that will be referred to you are certainly a lot more complex. So you have to be very careful when you hand over. And because of that, right, because of better care, they could also have comorbidities. For example, a patient who comes in with stroke could have, of course, diabetes and hypertension. So you need to address all of that, okay? Similarly with chronic diseases. And I think with this COVID pandemic, there is a global shortage of workforce. So communication becomes even more important because you may not be able to attend to everybody at one go. You need to prioritize. And how do you prioritize? You have to communicate which patient needs to be attended first, okay? And I think when you communicate, right, these are also important because when you communicate, you ensure that there is patient safety, okay? And of course, thankfully now, the working hours are much more shortened because back then, maybe Dato' Zul, Prof. Azhar is younger than me, but Dato' Zul, we're probably around the same age, right? Long ago, right, we used to do on-call every other day, right? Maybe this batch doesn't do that, okay? But long hours. So what you communicate becomes even more important, okay? So just consider this scenario. A pregnant diabetic woman admitted for pulmonary embolus. She appears there, right, in casualty. So who are the healthcare providers? As a team player, right, let's say that you are the first one in ED. Of course, here you have the PAC, Patient Admission Center in the obstetric side. But maybe not every hospital has that. So you have to be able, if you're the first person there on the spot, you have to know who are the person that needs to come into the team, right? And you probably think, okay, pregnant woman, pulmonary embolus, I need obstetrician, I need endocrinologist, maybe medical, okay, I probably need some diagnostic workup. I think I have to contact my radiology friend, okay? But you know, are all of these personnel involved available at the same time? Maybe not. So then you have to plan your communication well, okay? Right. So I've already mentioned this, everybody in the team counts, okay? And the team members should know their role, okay? Interact with one another well because there's one goal, okay? It's one goal, okay? It's to make the patient better and hopefully, inshallah, cure the patient, okay? And you have to work together, okay? You have to have cohesion, okay? You have to respect each other. I think Datuk Mahmud and Datuk Hassan emphasized this many times, okay? Do not belittle the role of another person in the team, okay? And you know, you have to know that you are, what you do is interdependent, okay? right? And you have to give and take. Let's just say that person was supposed to do the blood gas and struggling to do that, all right? Then you say, you're not going to stand there and like, oh yeah, that's your job, okay, you're supposed to do that. So there must be flexibility and you have to communicate. Right? If you're the person who's struggling, you have to tell, I'm not familiar with this, I don't have the expertise yet, can you help me? Okay, right? So if you're not sure and you see somebody struggling, not asking, I think you have to jump in, okay, and offer a hand, okay? So these are just keywords. I think I'll just go through. Do not assume. Okay, never assume. All right, don't think that, oh, I think Dr. So and so is going to chase for the blood, right? You have to make sure, is that Dr. So and so chasing for blood, right? I said, Dato Zul, has the blood been taken, right? Don't wait and assume, okay? Right? Learning styles. Everybody has their own pace, right? So you have to be a bit more, acknowledge diversity also in the team, okay? So listen. I think when you communicate, listening is always important. Remember, it is bi-directional, okay? And if there are conflicts, right, don't tuck it under the carpet, tuck it in some corner, right? I can guarantee you if that conflict is not resolved, it's going to appear again. And that will make the situation even worse, okay? Right? And somebody will have to take charge, okay? And usually that is evident. Usually is the most experienced person. It may not always be the doctor. It could be the nurse, all right? It could be a senior nurse. Let's say it was a young doctor. So, you know, you have to be respectful, okay? All right? Okay, and always communicate, okay? So these are the other techniques, okay? If you're doing resuscitation, you may have to do a call out, okay? And you always have to check back. All right. And if you are doing a communication, for example, like when you're taking consent or you're at the clinic. So this is an acronym. There are many acronyms I'm going to share, but I'm not going to elaborate so much in terms of, because of time. Okay. You have to introduce yourself, talk about the situation, background, assess, and then finally summarize and make recommendations. Okay. And this is especially important when you hand over. I think some of these are repetitive, okay? But you must have accurate exchange, okay? Skip this, all right? And this is another acronym where I talk about, just now was ISBA, now is I pass the baton, okay? These slides will be made available, okay? I do not want to elaborate one after another. But remember, whatever you do, when you have to communicate, my take-home message at this point of time is you have to have an agenda. You cannot go and see a patient and then, you know, what else? What do I need to do next? You must already have an agenda of what you need to say and share. Then it becomes better, okay? Because if you are there struggling and stuttering, right? You know, probably the patient might also wonder, does this doctor really know what he or she is talking about, okay? Right, so communication, right? I'll just skip the entire slide here, but mention here. It's a common cause of complaint when you miscommunicate. Okay, so please take time in talking to your patients. Good communication is an investment. Okay, right. And again, respect for autonomy, accurate information, and depending on what you're counseling for, please always set appropriate time. I think it will be, you know, the non-verbal cues where you're like looking at the watch, you know, and like, you know, you have to really set some time. If you're going to counsel, like Prof. Azhar, right? I mean, Prof. Azhar works in the ICU backup. And if you are going to counsel a patient who is terminal, right, you have to set some time, right? I usually set easily half an hour, even beyond that, right? If they're not ready yet, okay, right, then you have to engage them again. So be mindful of time constraints that you have, but you must plan it well, okay? Right. Cultural differences, right? I think you have to be aware of that. Health literacy, always try and assess what your patients know, okay? And acknowledge cultural diversity, okay? Remember, this the important point here. Is this how I want my family member to be treated? Always remember that, okay? And right, I think you have to be honest, okay, right? When these are the barriers where maybe somebody may not be honest because they are worried They're not going to tell the risk, okay, because they are fearful of legal action, okay. So this is not right, because when you are dishonest, you are acting without integrity. And I think, you know, by the code of professional conduct, you have to be someone who is practicing with integrity, okay. Right. And this is yet another acronym, okay? And we are talking about spikes. So I mentioned about ISBA, okay? I mentioned about I pass the baton, okay? In spikes, we're talking about the setting must be right. You must assess the perception, okay? What the patient is thinking about. Then you impart information, knowledge, give some time for the patient to prepare for disturbing news, and empathy. I'm going to end my talk soon. I just want to share after this one final video about empathy. And I think that video will highlight why empathy is so important. And finally, you have to summarize it all. There must be closure, okay, to your session, okay? Okay, so this is the video. Okay, just a minute. This is a video on empathy. Okay, so I hope you'll be able to hear this because I have to stop a certain screen here.
So what is empathy,
right?
and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, woo, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay, so that was my video. I got it from a colleague. She's a child life specialist in the United States. Okay, so as you can see, right, empathy is especially important when you are conveying bad news. Okay, and it is not an easy thing to do, right? And there are moments where even I myself still struggle, right? I like to admit that. So it is certainly something that you learn as you go along, okay, and you gain the experience, okay. I'm just going to share my final slide, which actually just shows the resource of some of the other videos, okay. Just a minute, sorry. Anyway, it's only the last slide is just a compilation of all the other videos that you can also access. Okay, and I will be sharing the slides. I think there was a question whether all of the lectures will be shared. I think most of our speakers have given permission, right? So we will be able to share the slides. Okay, it will be done through the postgraduate coordinators in your department. Okay, and basically that was just my last slide. Okay. You can see it, right? So this is just, you know, various, you just have to go onto YouTube, right? And there's lots available there. So, okay, Prof. Azhar, I think, you know, being a lecturer, we always talk so much. So, and we probably steal over a bit of the time, but okay, so that's me, yes.
Thank you very much, Prof. Zurinah, for a very interesting slides and also videos. It's a very, very cute cartoon with the empathy. Yeah, what you say is very true. We are all still learning to improve our communications. So, I would like to remind all the participants, you can always write your questions at the Q&A section at the Zoom, yeah, while this forum is ongoing. So I would like to ask Professor Dato Zul for the next part of the forum. I'm also quite new with these words actually. So I would like to ask him a few questions actually. What is actually advocacy and what is actually why and what is the difference? Advocacy and health advocacy, it's something that I think you need to enlighten us this morning, Prof. Zul.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Thank you for chairing the session. Thank you, Prof. Zurinah, for inviting me here. First of all, I would like to welcome all our new orang kata keluarga fakulti perubatan. Is actually a starting or a beginning of a new phase in your life, which is not really a bed of roses, tapi at the end of the day, I'm sure inshallah it will be a lot of benefit to you. So before that, I just share my screen sekejap. Okay, Prof, boleh nampak saya punya slide ya. So today we are going to talk about health advocacy. For me, this is also a new thing, but when I do some research, because this is not erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation where normally I talk about, so I need to read a bit about health advocacy. Tapi rupa-rupanya actually this thing we are doing it every day tau. And then these are the thing that like Prof. Zurinah said just now, is all about communication sebenarnya. Okay, just hang on. Right. Okay. So what is actually health advocacy? Kalau kita tengok dekat slide kan, when I actually asked somebody about this, and this is actually his word, yeah. So I said, what is advocacy? So he said, advocacy is actually there's no big deal about it. It is actually just working with people and then simply utilizing good interpersonal skill. We had heard from Prof. Zurinah just now about communication skill, and we know that communication skill is actually part of good interpersonal skill. Tapi kalau kita nak tengok what is actually the makna of advocacy, is actually the act of taking position on an issue. Yeah, and after that, we initiate action in a deliberate attempt to influence private or public policy choices. So this is a big bombastic word lah, tapi sebenarnya is actually a good interpersonal skill and being a orang kata health advocate, which I'm going to talk about after this. And we have to understand that advocacy is actually a process, and it is not an event. And we can use advocacy to promote almost any issue. And as you know, in health, there is a lot of issue that we can talk about. Okay, sebelum pada tu, let me explain a bit about this. This is a concept that we want nowadays. Yeah? In 2020, this is the thing that we wanted. We want a patient-centered care. Yeah. So what is patient-centered care? So patient-centered care is actually a healthcare that establish a partnership between practitioner, patient, their family, because we want to ensure that decision respect what patient want, what patient need, and what patient preference. It's not about what we need anymore. It's about what patient want and their relative wants. And patient have the education, I put that in red, education, and support their need to make decision and participate in their own care. So this is the new patient-centered care that we wanted. Education, why I put that education? Because patient education is actually our education. We are the one who's going to educate the patient. And patient-centered care, safer medical system, and greater patient involvement in healthcare delivery and design are the goal of health advocacy. Okay, then I will talk a bit about siapa to actually health advocate. We ask ourselves, who actually health advocate? Health advocate is actually kita sebenarnya. Saya, Prof. Azhar, Prof. Zurinah, and you guys, and you all. Because we are the one who are the individual who provide direct and personalized service to a patient and their family as they navigate throughout the healthcare system. So we are actually the health advocate. Not we are the one. And we need to engage in activity that promote health and access to healthcare in community and larger public. But I just want to sort of like discuss a bit about activity. This activity are not actually macam we go and promote macam pink ribbon lah, blue ribbon for prostate cancer and all that. These are the activity that we do every day. I will elaborate a bit more about this. And then we are not talking about big thing now. We are talking about the things that we can do in our environment. Okay. Coming back to the term of health advocacy, what is actually advocacy? It is also called health activism. Okay, tapi kalau you tengok definition ni, it's a bit long-winded lah, but I will read it out to you. This is sort of like what is the meaning of health advocacy. It is encompass a direct service to individual or family, as well as activity that promote health and access to healthcare in community and larger public. Yeah, meaning that health activity, healthcare. And advocates, the health advocates support and promote the right of the patient in the health arena, which help to build capacity to improve community health and enhance health policy initiative focus on available, safe and quality care. So it's a bit mouthful, but it is actually an important statement of our role. So a health advocate, again, we are health advocate, are best suited to address the challenge of patient-centered in our complex healthcare system. For example, nowadays, it is not like last time when I first started our medical career, macam, I, Prof. Zurinah and all that. At that time, there's no Google. There's no Dr. Google. At this moment, patient comes to you with a lot of knowledge from Dr. Google, and they challenge us sometimes. So these are the things that we have to face nowadays. And sometimes they come with papers and all that, are trying to argue with you. But still, we are a health advocate. So you might think, okay, I baru first year, maybe I'm not ready yet to be health advocate. Actually, no. So actually, everybody now is a health advocate. So once you dah masuk to become a medical doctor or nurses or practitioner, you are the health advocate. So according to me, this is actually the approach of how you want to become a good health advocate. First, You need to recognize your power. And of course, you are actually powerful because you are the expert in your field. You are now going to become a specialist in your field, later going to become consultant in your field. And then you have to see yourself to be the resources. And then of course you have consultant, you have your what you call specialist, engage with them, discuss with them. That is what I put there as engage the decision maker. And of course, you want to share about public, kan, about something that you know, about something that you will share with the public, utilize the media. I will go one by one. Okay, be the resources that build the power of the community. Community here, I'm not talking about community at large, you know. We are not politician. Community ni maknanya community, your community. Your community maksudnya your family, your nurses, your houseman, your pembantu kesihatan, the community around you. So I put there, advocacy is much more effective when supported by engaged community. So meaning that you have to educate your community dulu. You need to share the knowledge with your own community first. Change the culture and attitude of the community from within. So maknanya kalau dulu you are at certain hospital, now you come to another hospital, you rasa there's something good that need to be shared from that hospital to this new hospital. So try to change your culture and attitude of your community from within. And engage your member in the issue as well as process to develop a collective beneficial agenda. So maknanya if you feel like macam katakan Allah lambatnya buat discharge dekat ward ni, patient berlambat-lambat tengah tunggu, try to discuss, give some idea, tanya nurses, tanya the pembantu kesihatan, sit